2, 1.
Welcome to Made for More Living.
One small step for man.
With Johnny Jennings.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
The fastest and most exciting hour of news, events, and real estate in Northern California.
And this is a fact that was proved.
Powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Get ready. Here we go.
Welcome back to another episode. Today in the studio, we have a special guest, and her name is Chenelle Hernandez with Successful Signings. Thanks for being here, Chenelle.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and so what Chenelle does is she owns Successful Signings,
Right.
and you guys started that company about 6 years ago, right?
That's right.
And what exactly is Successful Signings?
Successful Signings is a notary company or a signing service. We help escrow officers, lenders, realtors close their deals all over the country.
All over the country. And so let's actually get into that. So you actually had helped an agent save a deal. They thought they were going to have to cancel the whole thing. Can you share a little bit about what happened with that?
Yes, that's one of my favorites. My realtor called me. She was actually quite upset and saying that she thought she had to cancel a transaction. She had a first-time home buyer. She kind of specializes in first-time home buyers. But they found out late in the transaction that she had been married, and the estranged spouse, who they were still technically married, was living in another state, and that he didn't have any identification.
What?
Yeah, not sure what the situation was for that, but the realtor was really afraid that she wouldn't be able to get a grant deed signed, which is a requirement in California for buyers that are married.
Okay.
And she called me, not even realizing that she made the right call. And I called someone in Texas to verify their laws there, and was happily able to call my realtor back and let her know there was no issue. Texas has credible witness laws just like California, so we could notarize for him.
So when we talk about credible witness, we don't have to get too deep in the weeds, but what exactly does that mean?
That means just in case somebody has lost their ID or it's expired or something else has happened where they just don't have one, that we can still verify who they are by using witnesses who do have valid identification who can verify the identity of the signer.
Got it. So let's say you're, like you mentioned, your ID is expired. You can still get the document notarized. You just need to have a credible witness. What qualifies as a credible witness?
Somebody who's over the age of 18, typically someone who's unrelated is best. If they are technically related, someone who has a different last name, it kind of helps just make sure that the signing doesn't appear to have any conflict of interest. But usually someone who's unrelated, like a friend or a neighbor who is over the age of 18 with a valid ID.
So basically how that process then worked with this deal going down in Texas, the signing that needed to take place in Texas. Somebody who knew the person that was signing showed up with their valid ID. The notary verified who they were, and they said, hey, this person that had now been verified said this signer is who they say they are, and you're able to move forward.
That's right. And typically in California and Texas, it's two people. So not only one person, but two separate people who are over the age of 18 with valid ID have to verify that person's identity in the absence of an actual ID.
Love that story, though. So that was a deal that was potentially dead, and you just made a quick phone call, and you're like, hey, I got you, realtor. You're going to get paid. The deal's going to close. Everybody's going to be okay.
Right. Then the lady still got to buy her first home ever and became a homeowner.
Wow. That's fantastic.
That's my favorite.
So you got started in this 6 years ago. What is it that made you want to get started in this industry?
I had been a stay-at-home mom and had kind of an extensive medical history, so I'd been at home for a long time raising babies and
you only have one or two
surgeries, 1 or 2 or 5 babies.
You have five
babies.
You have 5 kids?
5.
Oh my gosh.
5 kids, 18 surgeries. So I was tired of just being in the house, and I opened up my Spotify and I typed in the word finance. I just started listening to podcasts. So this is kind of a full circle moment. I was listening to podcasts. I just got motivated and started trying to do something different. The only thing I really knew to do without further training at the time was go be a waitress. And in Georgia, they pay $2.14 per hour.
Really?
So I did that because it was better than nothing, but I kept listening to those podcasts. And then at one point, I heard of this mobile notary thing related to real estate. I was very interested in real estate and investing, so it seemed to kind of go along with that. And I did it. I paid $45. I swore in Georgia. There's no test, and I became a notary.
Really? There's no test, nothing?
Nope.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a low bar. But now you're out here in California,
That's right.
and you and I met. I think it was the first time. It was probably at a mixer event. Was it?
That's right.
Okay. So we've known each other for a number of years, probably close to the 6.
We're getting to 4-ish.
4-ish?
Four
Oh, but
to
who's
five.
counting?
I came in 2020, and then mixers started opening up in early 21 because it was
Okay.
COVID. When we got here, there weren't any events at first.
Our mixer was going in 2020.
Oh, really? I didn't know about it till 21.
Yeah, no, we launched it. What better time to start a networking mixer than
It worked for you.
Heart of COVID, yeah. And so we've been working together ever since. And one of the reasons why I like working with Successful Signings and you specifically, Chenelle, is you have relationships with all the title companies in the area.
That's right.
So what happens is I just tell the title company, or I just tell our preferred. Normally, we're working with Margaret over at Chicago.
Right.
And we say, hey,
Love Margaret.
Chenelle's our girl. Make sure you send all the signings to Successful Signings. And so the reason why we do that, though, is because most people think to this day that you still have to take time off work and go into the office, find the escrow company, and go in and sign in person. But with signing companies like yours, you're able to meet them anywhere, right?
Yeah, literally anywhere. We try to make it as convenient for the client as possible, and then convenient for the title companies as possible too. We try to take some of the work off their back and off the realtor so that you don't have to worry about it by the time it gets to that point in your transaction.
So when we say meet you anywhere, where are some memorable places where you or your notaries have met people?
I've signed in a garage on a trash can. I've signed at a preschool where there were 2-year-olds making a lot of noise in another room, so much so that I actually wrote the word distracted on my notary certificate while I was trying to fill out the notary certificate because it was so distracting having all these 2-year-olds in this daycare. But
Coming from a mom of 5, that must have been really loud.
That's true. That's a very good point. I used to always love when I was driving around myself going up to Placerville where there's a lot of wineries in the area. And it was really cool one time. Actually, the family was selling their winery and I was there to do the papers for the sale.
Wow.
And so I got to hear about their history and what they were going to do next. They still wanted to stay in the wine business, but they were going to open up a shop in Placerville and sell the wine and not grow it anymore. It became pretty difficult with a lot of drought in California to keep it, fertile on the ridge that they were up on in Placerville. But they gave me a, really special bottle of wine as a prize for being their notary. And I don't even drink wine, so I still have it.
There you go. It's a good memory, though.
Yeah, it's a good memory. It looks cute in my kitchen, and it was just fun to be a part of it.
So the point is if you are needing any document signed, Successful Signings will come to your house. They'll meet you at work.
Yep.
You don't have to be local. You guys serve. Where don't you serve? Let's put it that way.
Literally nowhere in the 50 contiguous states or whatever they're called. We have notaries that can come in person.
Continental.
Thank you.
So you're not going to Hawaii or Alaska is what you're saying, right?
No, actually, I'm saying the opposite.
Oh, okay.
We can
Serve all 50.
All 50 states. We have notaries that are physically there, and in 33 of those states now, we have notaries who have laws where they're allowed to do online notarization, which is one of my favorite things because California notaries are not allowed to do that yet, and so a lot of my title companies get to learn about it from me, and I get to provide that service for them.
That's so cool. Why? How is an online notary different than a?
When your wife is stuck in China and you're trying to close on your home, we can sign a POA for your wife online.
What's a POA?
A power of attorney.
A
power of attorney. So that gives the ability for the husband who is here in the States to sign for both the husband and the wife, and they can close their transaction on time even though the wife is in another country.
Love that.
That's incredible.
And so 33 states allow
So
that?
far, there might be more. Last time I checked, it was 33 states. I have notaries that I have favorites in about 3 or 4 states. Some title companies don't allow certain states, like Orange Coast Title is not allowing us to use Virginia notaries. So I stick with the Utah and the Florida notaries and the Arizona ones who can do our RON signings.
So fascinating. Okay, so I'm looking forward to when electric signings are available in California.
We can record.
They're not available yet in California?
No, we can record them here. We can do them for anyone here if everyone who's in your transaction is on board with it. The most common transactions for California files are going to be single documents like grant deeds, power of attorney, or sellers. Buyers are not common because the lender has to be on board with it. We have done them, but they're not common. But pretty much anyone who needs to do a seller online or grant deed or a power of attorney, we can do it. And I've not had anyone reject our files in California.
Oh, those types of things. But I was just saying like the full, all closing docs, like just do it online.
There are companies that are working toward that.
Yeah. But is it available? Just so I'm clear. I thought it wasn't available. Like you could.
Oh, yeah.
You could.
100%. If all parties involved are on board, yes, you can absolutely buy a house online.
Is it typically the escrow companies that don't allow that then, or who is it? You said the lender.
No, I think in the end it's the lender that would say no.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you guys prevent fraud in those types of situations?
They have very strict identity verification processes on these RON, which is remote online notarization platforms. And then again, specific title companies will have certain requirements, like we're only allowed to use Proof, which is the name of a platform for Fidelity and Chicago RON signings. And Proof has, encrypted, validated. Like if you've ever gone onto a website and they've asked you about your previous addresses or if this name is associated with you and you kind of have to verify your identity, it has stuff that's like that in addition to showing the ID and in addition to being on a video while you're doing the notarization. They're all recorded. The entire video of the whole notarization is always kept in the file.
Okay. Got it. So so you're logging into this third-party platform that's enabling this electronic notarization to take place.
That's right.
Is it any longer of a process to go through this?
Not for the signer.
Not for the signer, as long as they know the answers to all the questions?
That's right.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty cool.
No, for the signer, it would be much easier because everything's already there and tagged and you're not dealing with real paper. Have you ever done a DocuSign document?
Yeah.
Was it way faster?
Yeah.
It's like that.
Okay. So just
it's like that. If they can get into the system, there's a few people that have needed some special, like extra instruction, getting into an online portal kind of a thing.
Are they able to do it on their phones, or do they have to be on like a desktop?
I think it's a laptop. I don't know if it can be done from a phone. I think I've heard in most cases it's a laptop.
Okay, because I could see it just because we do a lot of DocuSign. People, when they're really wanting to read the documents or review them, it's hard to see on your phone because it's so small.
Right.
So
I haven't heard of it being done on a phone yet. I do believe a laptop is one of the requirements.
Okay. All right, well, that was a fun little tangent. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I'm so looking forward to that.
We can notarize you anywhere.
Yeah,
We've done Panama, Canada, everywhere.
That's the other thing, too, is that we recently had somebody who they were moving. I can't remember what state or what country in the Middle East, but they were like, hey, I might be over there. Are you able to get it done? And the answer is yes, right?
Right.
So if somebody is even traveling internationally, where do they go to complete the signings?
Well, that's where we kind of come in and help because normally without our service that we can just get on a computer and do it, they would have to go find an embassy or potentially have a notary from that country meet up with them. Like in Puerto Rico, you have to find a lawyer who's a notary because they're all lawyers. So it can get really, really complicated and be very inconvenient for a signer. Plus, if you go to the embassy, then they have to go find a FedEx. Then they have to get these originals back from another country, which can be very, very long. With our remote online notarization process, it's immediate. There's no shipping.
Wow.
The documents that are uploaded from that online process, those are the same online documents that get printed and taken to the county.
Nice.
Don't even ship them. Yeah.
Love it. All right, so when we come back, we're going to be talking about what makes successful signings different and how they go above and beyond for their clients, and it's not just for real estate.
The weather's getting better. Buyers are out shopping. Is your home ready to sell? Well, skip all the showings, the open houses, those costly needed repairs, and just reach out to Johnny Jennings. He'll get you at least 3 cash offers on your home, guaranteed in as-is condition. There's a reason why they were voted #1 real estate team in Roseville for the past 3 years. Almost 1,000 5-star Google reviews. Just Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
We're back in the studio with Chenelle Hernandez with Successful Signings. And
Can I ask one real quick question?
Absolutely, Matt.
So how do you juggle family life and 5 kids with your work?
Extremely carefully now, and sometimes I just throw my hands up and just stop doing things because I get overwhelmed. So
But it
there's
seems
a little
like
bit
you
of both.
picked a good career where you have some flexibility,
Right.
and you're obviously knowledgeable in what you do. So that
flexibility, that's an F word, Matt.
Well, to some degree, no.
Depends on how you're running your business. When I first got to California, we were beginning a brand new life from scratch in California. So in order to build that business, I was gone a lot.
Yep.
Was gone a lot.
So that's what people get into real estate all the time. They're like, oh, I'm getting into it because I want a flexible career.
Right,
I can make my own hours. And I'm like, okay, if that's what you want, this is not the career for
No,
you.
it's full-time. It's way more than full-time, for sure.
But you can
Yeah.
take your kids with you wherever you go, right? Get in the car. We're going over here.
Not at first, but lately, yes. I've been super fortunate now that I have, like my 14-year-old joined me yesterday to a team meeting with a loan officer and his assistants.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was really fun. And she also joined me when I went to San Diego right after I spoke to you, and I was speaking on stage. So my 14-year-old got to come to, a fun business conference
Cool.
and meet other business owners and then see her mom speak on stage.
That's awesome.
really neat. Yeah. That's really neat. But I just wanted differentiate when people think, for example, realtors.
Here he goes. Go ahead. I'm ready.
You know what I'm going to say?
No, I know your passion. I said something and it triggered you. So here you go.
Oh my gosh.
Go ahead.
It didn't. So when people think about realtors, they think everybody's the same. They think, hey, the realtor that is on the radio station is the same as my niece that just got her license. I'm just going to use my niece, right? I'm going to help her out, get her, help her in the industry. But what they don't realize is how different real estate agents are. For example, Inman News came out with a report that in 2024, so last year, 71% of real estate agents did not do a single transaction, not one. And so what you have in the real estate industry is you have a lot of pretenders, you have a lot of part-timers, you have a lot of people who are dangerous because they don't really know what they're doing. I would imagine it's the same in your industry, Chenelle.
That's right.
Where it's the barrier to entry is low, but that doesn't mean all notaries are equally competent or equally good at what they do. And so what's great about your company is you have a bunch of things that differentiate you from your typical part-timer, flexible schedule notary.
Right. That's a very, very good point. And also part of what we look for when we subcontract out to other notaries. And as our company is absolutely full-time, again, even just being a business owner or a realtor like you, we are more than full-time. It's not a 9 to 5. Our clients don't need us 9 to 5. It's, I won't say 24 hours, but it's close to it. We go above and beyond. We make sure documents get hand delivered when we can. We keep them out of FedEx. We've driven long.
Wait, speak to that really quick. So why out of FedEx?
Well, sometimes they have to if they're coming from Nevada or Hawaii or somewhere far away. But we're in California. We're based in California, and a lot of our clients are based in California. So we'll have signings that are in the Bay Area or out on the coast or even down in Santa Barbara. And if what has happened in the past, if something occurs where maybe the signer was late or, just the signer wasn't available until a certain time, but there is no FedEx at that time, and the title company needs the original documents back in their office the following morning in order to close. And recording times are typically pretty early. They can be 11 a.m., 12 p.m., so it doesn't leave a lot of time to work with. Plus, those documents have to get processed by the time they get back. FedEx is used and is very helpful. It can be very reliable. But if we're shipping documents from Elk Grove to Auburn, that's a drive that we can do without sending documents to Tennessee, which is what happens when they go into FedEx. They have their own security and logistics system that involves sending packages to a hub before they come back to their destination. And a lot of packages end up getting stuck in Tennessee if there's a storm, and there have been delays for that reason. So as much as we can, possibly locally, we will not use FedEx labels, even if they're given to us by our clients.
So just to clarify, if somebody does a sign in Elk Grove, and they then send it out to FedEx, it goes to Tennessee and then comes back to California?
That's right.
That's crazy. But you guys go to great lengths, you mentioned, to not rely on FedEx.
That's right. If it's local within, from Placerville to Yuba City or anywhere in that range, we will make sure those documents are hand delivered as much as we can. And additionally, if FedEx was missed or it just wasn't available.
If you missed the cutoff.
Yeah, if someone missed the cutoff or if it just wasn't available, maybe some rural areas have very early cutoffs. There are some that are as early as 8 or 10 in the morning, and it's not even a FedEx office. It's some pack and ship because FedEx office doesn't exist in that location. Yeah. We may have to drive our team from Sacramento, Roseville to Paso Robles or Santa Barbara to pick up those documents.
I love that because you were telling me a story to Santa Barbara, right?
Yes, I sent a teammate down to Santa Barbara. It was actually my sweet husband who made sure that our clients got the best service they could possibly get and close their deals and make their clients happy.
So he drove to Santa Barbara.
That's right.
Picked up the docs and drove it back to the title
Immediately
company.
Turned around and came back. It was probably the middle of the night when he got home, and then the next morning he would go to the title company.
When they open.
That's right.
Wow. That's above and beyond. That's not your typical notary. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Like, not all realtors are the same. Not all notaries are the same.
That's right.
Okay.
100%.
So you guys drove to Santa Barbara and back to get it done. And
Yes.
then I know the paperwork is in English, but what happens if you're interacting with somebody who doesn't speak English? Like, what are the laws around that?
Right. Well, aside from laws, it's partially customer service as well. Many foreign language speakers might know some English enough to do real estate. even if they have, some understanding of English, they're going to feel a lot more comfortable going through loan documents or even seller documents in their own language. So we want to provide that as much as possible. But if they're unable to speak English or communicate with the notary, it's actually against the law. California notaries have to be able to communicate, and the signer has to be able to understand the notary. They have to be able to understand each other.
So what if like the lender or the realtor speaks their language? Are they able to act as a translator, or does the notary still have to speak that language?
No, technically, the notary and the signer need to speak the same language so they can speak to each other without the use of a translator.
Got it.
So, fortunately, we have many foreign language speakers on our team. We have a Cantonese speaker doing a signing today at 2 p.m. in Elk Grove. We have them all over the country. We have a lot of Spanish speakers, Russian. Let's see, we've done Vietnamese, and I think we've done Thai. There's been quite a few.
Wow. So again, not all notaries are the same.
Right.
And then, but there's been an uptick in fraud, especially for properties that are paid off or vacant land or things like that.
Right.
What have you ever experienced? Anybody on your team ever experienced any potential fraud, or how does that work? Like if you think, hey, not everything feels right about this situation. How do you? Because you have lots of quality control checks.
That's right.
How do you handle those types of situations?
We do have a lot of quality control checks. The fraud part, catching fraud, rests partially on the notary's ability to verify the identity. The notary's main job as an officer of their respective states is to make sure the person who's in front of them is the person that they say they are to the best of their ability. If it was a very good fake ID, we might not know that, but there are certain things that the ID has to have in order for us to use it. And then, like we talked about before, if it was expired or it wasn't available, we could use credible witnesses. If we don't have the right ID, we do have to stop the signing. That can be uncomfortable. We don't want to let our clients down. But ultimately, that protects everyone. It protects the seller. It protects the realtor and the client, because if we notarize for someone and it really wasn't theirs, or there was something wrong with the ID, then later on that could come back in an audit. Well, that notary didn't notarize properly. Maybe the transaction would be invalidated and people would lose money. So we don't want to take that chance, even though we don't want to tell you we can't sign your signer. We would rather wait and have that person come back with credible witnesses or come back with the paper from the DMV, because even if they have their expired license and then their new paper with their new expiration date, if those license numbers match up, we can use their new paper from the DMV.
So you just use the photo from the old ID.
Right.
Okay, got it.
So there's multiple ways.
But what about, are there ever any situations where you're like, hey, this just doesn't feel right? Like the IDs match up, everything's good, but you're like, I don't know if this is...
Yeah, well, one time we didn't even get to the ID part. We did have the title company went as far as going through the whole escrow process, drawing documents, getting a notary assignment, which is pretty far, as you know, can take a few weeks to get there. We sent a notary out in Texas who communicated with the signer over text message, and they confirmed the appointment. When the notary got to the location, the person who answered the door said, he's not here. Michael's not here. And the notary was communicating with us and the title company throughout. And after a while, he just said, this just doesn't feel right. He said there was something off about the neighborhood and the way the person was confirming with him. And they didn't say Michael's not here. They didn't say he doesn't live here. They said Michael's not here. But there were enough weird things. We communicate with signers every day. Most people are very aware that there's signing. They're very, open and ready to sign.
Yeah.
So there was just a little bit, enough that was not normal for our notary to let us know this is not normal, along with a few things that had happened apparently during the escrow process. And the title company put those red flags together, and they said, we're just going to cancel this signing, tell the notary we're very sorry, we're going to just send him home. And then a couple weeks later, they let us know that they discovered it had been a fraudulent transaction. Someone was trying to sell a property. I think it was a vacant lot that wasn't theirs, which is the most common. It's either vacant lots or properties with no deed of trust. Yeah.
Wow. So your notary caught that. Are there any other instances, like, for example, we had one recently, it's been a while now, with Margaret, where Margaret's an escrow officer that we work with, who thought maybe there might be some memory issues. Like, do you ever experience those? Can those kill a signing?
They can. And again, that would be for everyone's protection. If you ended up signing with someone and then later they say that they don't remember, they didn't sign it, or they weren't there, it wasn't them, the audit would get pretty far. It could end up going to court. The notary would get subpoenaed. The notary records would be subpoenaed, which I do know a case personally where that has happened.
Wow.
So it's always best for the notary it's actually the notary's job, and it's not in real estate, but as a notary of anything, it's their job to make sure the person is not being coerced, they're not drunk or under medication, influence.
So they're celebrating for the new house and they started a little pre-party. They can't.
I mean, so we've seen people, have a drink. We've seen even realtors bring in wine and champagne. Yeah, of course, and even crack it open during the signing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's nothing that says they're not allowed to have alcohol at the table, but they cannot be. They have to have their wits about them. I guess it's a little bit vague. I'm not sure the exact wording in like a notary handbook, but definitely
you have to know what you're doing.
They have to know what they're doing. They have to know what they're signing. They have to be able to communicate. I have had times where I've had to crack a joke with someone to make sure they were all good, because it was kind of unclear. Like maybe they'd been coached. If I asked them the date and they knew the date, they're, it typically with elderly or sick clients, that would be the concern. There will be a certain point at which notaries cannot notarize for someone anymore. So if you're taking care of somebody or someone in your family is ill, there is always going to be a point where they won't be able to be identified legally because maybe if they have dementia or they're under medication. If they're, with cancer, they have a lot of pain medication or something. Yeah. So there may be a point when you're taking care of someone, especially in your family, where you just want to get some paperwork in order before it's too late.
And typically that's a power of attorney or?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
POA?
Right, yes. And that would be something where, notaries technically are not allowed to give advice. We can't draw documents. That's a lawyer's job. Mm-hmm. But we certainly can tell you when we won't be able to notarize. And we won't be able to notarize if someone has severe dementia or if they're on a lot of medication and they can't remember things and they can't communicate and they don't know what the document is. We won't be able to notarize them.
And if they're under duress, too,
That's
right? How do you... Do you have any stories with that? I mean, I don't. How did you even tell?
I don't personally, but I've heard a few notaries, saying like, the wife didn't want to sign that grant deed. It seemed like, he was forcing her, not on our signings, but I've heard that where like, man, she really didn't want to sign that, and that can get really tricky because, with a grant deed, you are transferring all your rights off of a property. And if, one of my jobs as a notary or as a signing agent is to let you know what document this is, and I can't hide what it is from you. And if I'm a really good signing agent, most of my title companies want me to explain the documents to you. And so, there have been surprises at the table where someone didn't know they were going to be signing a grant deed.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's wild. Well, good job. Good thing you were there. So.
Oh yeah. I remember one where she was, it was a restaurant and she was upstairs hollering that I'm not coming down there. That notary has to come up here. I'm not signing. And it was quite early in my career, but all I could remember thinking was I'm not going to be made to come up to her bedroom. So when she's ready, she can come down here. And she eventually did, but it was it was a lot of yelling and her and her husband had a whole thing about it. So.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
You should write a book. Confessions of a Notary.
Notaries talk about it all the time. They've got stories. Definitely. Notaries have a lot of stories.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was a pleasure having you. And if you want to reach out to Chenelle, what's the best way?
The best way for escrow or real estate purposes is just to loop us in on an email, info@mysuccessfulsignings.com. You can, email me there too if you're interested in becoming a notary. I have my Instagram at Chenelle Hernandez.
And of course,
question, if somebody is interested, what are you looking for?
Well, there's two things. To work with our team, we typically do hire, mostly veteran notaries that are going to help represent us very well at the table. We want to present our realtors and escrow officers with, the best possible. I have fortunately become in a position in the notary community where I can help people get started from the very beginning. I can tell them exactly how I learned about it from that podcast back in Georgia all the way to now where I'm actually an ambassador of something called the loan signing system. That was the course that I learned about back in Georgia, and now the coach of that course made me an ambassador. So I have access to a lot of resources, Facebook groups, holding notary meetups in Sacramento where we can all get together and teach them the tips and tricks and help them get started.
Now you're doing your own networking mixers for notaries.
Kind of, yes. I mean, I've been holding notary meetups, and I'm going to do more of them this year. I wouldn't necessarily call them my own. It's definitely a team effort because I have a really good coach.
Love it. Well, hey, if you have any questions, info@successfulsignings.com or just reach out to us at Made for More Realty and we'll get you connected. Thanks again, Chenelle.
Thank you.
So why were they voted #1 team in Roseville for the past 3 years? Why do they have more 5-star Google reviews than anyone else? Maybe it's because they sell homes faster and for more money. Get 3 cash offers for your home in as-is condition. Just Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
All right, Matt. Well, hey, that was great with Chenelle.
5 kids.
5
hustling.
kids.
I love her
hustling.
story,
Yeah.
Broke, traveling across the country, getting up at 3 a.m., trying to figure out how she's going to do this thing and, perseverance, and look where she's at now.
Oh, man, she's grown in leaps and bounds. I'm just so happy for her. Couldn't happen to a better person. But I do think it's hilarious what she was talking about in terms of flexibility.
Flexibility. Well, I brought that up. I thought, hey,
know.
do something where you have some flexibility. You have 5 kids and a job where it's going to allow you the time, if you need to go to those doctor's appointments or do whatever you need to. And when you have the time, you'll get to your job responsibilities. Kind of like real estate, right?
It's exactly like
Realtors
real
get
estate.
into that for that same reason.
Well, yeah. Real estate agents like to get into it because they think it's going to be flexible. But at the end of the
Couple
day,
of hours on the weekends, maybe an open house, and bam, you're making big money and doing great.
you're driving the Mercedes. You got the wardrobe. Selling Sacramento.
Is that not true?
Nothing could be further from the truth. It really, like, all kidding aside, it really makes me mad. Like, mad/sad for people who get into the industry thinking that's what it's going to be. They think, hey, I'll be able to transition out of the other industry that I'm in into this. I'll just
Or maybe do
part-time,
both,
or do
right?
both. Work for the state, be a firefighter, and it's like, okay, what if your lawyer was a firefighter? What if your dentist was also a employee of the state, and they just kind of did dentistry on the side? Like, I mentioned it with Chenelle in the interview. 71% of real estate agents did not sell a single house last year. 71. If you line up 10 of them, on average, 7 of them will have sold nothing.
Wow, that's incredible. Because a lot of people don't think that, especially if you're calling up a realtor or you're trying to sell your house. You think, oh, they're doing well. They've probably sold multiple homes, but in all actuality, 70% of the time, they didn't even sell a house all year.
They not even sold a house. If you line up 100, 98 of them, only 98 of them are selling less than 1.5 homes a month. Would you go to a doctor? Would you go to a dentist? Would you go to a mechanic? Would you go to a chiropractor if every time you went into the office, there was nobody else there?
So do you think one of the problems is that they go into this thinking they can have flexibility? They don't go all in. That's the problem?
Yeah.
Why 7 out of 10 are not selling a home?
7 out of 10 are not selling a home. Over 90% of real estate agents quit in 5 years or less. Over
90% quit in 5 years or less. Why is that?
Because
They're not selling a home?
they're not selling homes. They're not making any money, and so it's like, why am I paying these dues?
Sure.
And then 2, it's just way harder than what they expected. It's not a flexible schedule. It's not easy on family.
Not a flexible schedule.
Not a flexible schedule. If you're doing any amount of business, think about it. You're working with lenders and title and escrow companies, right? During business hours, but your clients are typically available nights and weekends. I'm not proud of this, but this is honest. I went to bed with Valerie on the phone last night talking to a home seller about the 3 different offers she had on her property. I went to bed and Valerie was still working, right? So that's when she gets her second wind after the kids are all down and put down. Like,
Sure.
If that's what it takes to, and so there's going to be 2 types of realtors listening to this right now that are they're either nodding their head or they're going, I would never do that. The people who are nodding their heads are probably top producers. They're probably selling more than 1.5 homes a month. They've been there. They understand that. The ones that are like, oh man, that's horrible. I agree with you. It's not a good place to be, but you're probably also not selling houses. The biggest thing. So Valerie was asked one time, hey, what's the difference? Because she was called out by this mega producer, and he's like, hey, if you guys want to be successful, do what this person's doing, do what that person's doing, do what Valerie Jennings is doing. And so a guy came up to her afterwards and said, hey, what is it you do? Why are you so successful? She's like, I don't say no. And that is being successful in real estate in a nutshell. That's being successful at anything. Chenelle is successful because she didn't say no. She would show up. She sent her husband to drive to Santa Barbara and back to make sure that her clients were happy, because she knows it's not about only that one client. It's about all the deals that are going to follow it. About 1, doing the right thing, and then 2, just making sure that the repeat referral business is going to be there, that she's dependable, she's reliable. And if your real estate agent is doing this part-time, if they have to squeeze you in between coffee, yoga, and picking up the kids at school, like you feel that as a client. you're like, you don't feel as like you're a priority. And when you're putting down, $20,000, $60,000, $100,000 or more, when you're buying a house, or when you're paying these fees, and you're seeing how much the agents are getting paid. Are they really worth that fee? Well, if they're doing it part time, you kind of feel like it's not worth it. So I recently went on a listing appointment. This house is probably worth $2.4 million. The person, I knew he had dealt with other fantastic real estate agents, because when he says, "Hey, so what do you charge? Like, is it 3 bananas?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely, it's 3 bananas." $2.4 million. That's a large commission check. But he just assumed that is what I was going to get paid, was 3 bananas, because that's what all of his other agents in Pebble and in Santa Cruz and other locations had charged him. Meanwhile, I'm talking to somebody else who is selling a house for $300,000, and they want it for 1.5 bananas, right? And so, to me, that says either they don't see the value in a real estate agent, even though I gave them the same presentation, even though I'm providing the same level of service, they don't see the value. And so, if you're doing this part time, it's really hard to convey that value, and when you're trying to earn an income. So
for young people or someone who's thinking about entering the industry, how many hours a week do you think they should realistically expect to be putting in as an agent?
Absolutely. So, I don't know. I
know it's not the same for everybody, but let's say they want to be part of your team.
Yeah.
Let's say someone is listening to this show and they're hustling as a real estate agent, or maybe they're brand new and they got their license and they've heard you talk about being a part of a team, and they like you and they feel like you're going to help them succeed.
So what I would tell people is, like, I can only coach you from where I've been. There are people who have had way more success with way less effort, and then there's people who have achieved much less success, with tons of effort. Whatever. I can only tell you what I've done. And so what I did for the first 9 years of being a real estate agent is I worked 7 days a week. 7 days a week for 9 years. Not only me, but then Valerie was also doing it as well. We had 2 kids during that period of time. We changed markets 3 times our first 4 years in the industry. Like, we were working every single day, 7 days a week, for 9 years. Whether we were on vacation, which barely ever happens. I don't even know the last time I was on vacation. Like, just for fun. Normally we travel, and it's we're going to Cabo in March. It's a work thing. We're learning about how to grow our real estate business. We're not going just to hang out by the beach. And so, if you're looking to be successful in this industry, I would expect it to be a 7 day a week thing. Now, you're like, well, Johnny, you're a Christian, you go to church. Yes, I totally get that. Again, I'm not recommending necessarily what we did. I'm just telling you what we did. But what Valor and I would do is we would go to church. We would go to the early morning service on Sundays, because most clients and stuff are not up early in the morning.
Right.
And then we would do open houses in the afternoons, and then we'd be available for the clients in the afternoons to show them properties and just meet with people. And so that's kind of how we did it. So what my schedule looks like right now, 10 years into this, selling a home every 3 days, what my schedule looks like right now, and I would expect a new agent to be working even harder, is I show up, I'm at the office at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then my cutoff, I stop it at 7 o'clock at night. So if I'm on appointments, sometimes it goes a little later, sometimes I'm driving home.
Wait, what time did you say you start in the morning?
8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
I'm at the office at 8 o'clock in the morning. There might be texts or emails or whatever, but I'm at the office at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm loading up and going home at 7 o'clock at night. The reason why is because I want to wake up, I want to be there when my boys wake up, and I want to be there to put them down.
Nice, love that.
And so should it be more, should it be less? Probably somewhere in between, but that's what I'm doing. So if you're looking to be successful in this industry, show up at your office at 8 o'clock in the morning and start doing lead generation activities that are going to provide an income for you and your family, and then go on appointments in the afternoons.
So I guess from what I'm hearing is, one of the questions you would ask someone is, what are you expecting to get out of this? That will determine how much effort you need to put into it, right?
Absolutely. And not everybody, some people just want to do this part-time. Some people just want to close a deal every quarter, right? I don't think that's good for them, and I don't think that's good for the industry. Because,
why not?
Because you're a pretender, you're a part-timer, you're not doing this full-time, you're thinking about you, and I get it, I'm working hard, I'm thinking about me, I'm trying to provide an income for myself and my family, but if you're doing this part-time, you're not very good at what you're doing. You're seeing a limited number of scenarios, you're doing a limited number of negotiations, you have a limited amount of experience, and that you're not getting even the reps in. And so if it takes 10,000 hours to be good at something, and you're closing a deal every 3 months, it's going to take you a long time to be good at it, if ever. Versus if you're working hard and you're compressing that timeline, you're showing up at 8, you're working hard, you're doing lead generation activities, like you're calling people, you're calling your sphere, you're doing open houses, and then you're going home at 7. You're locking it up and going home at 7 o'clock at night. You're going to compress that timeline down, and you don't even have to be the brightest bulb in the box. You will find success. And so if you're looking to get in the industry, that's the type of work it takes to be successful.
And then you would say to that person, what? Is it worth it? And your answer would be, obviously, you've been talking about sacrifice, hustling, working hard. Is the payout worth it?
So that's an interesting question. So
for you, obviously, otherwise you'd be done, right?
Yeah, otherwise I'd be done. It depends on the day because for example, like I went on 8 appointments. I didn't get any of them. I went 8 appointments in a week, and I did not get any of them. And that's just like, man, am I in the right industry? Is this really working hard? But then you know what? The next week, 4 of those people called me up, said they wanted to move forward, and then I signed $1 million listing and a $2.4 million listing. And so it's an up and down. What my suggestion is, in order for an agent to succeed at this in the long haul, which I've only been doing it 10 years, so I haven't done this 20, 30, 40 years. Like Tom Dave's been doing it. Yeah, I think he sold Noah the Ark, right? But in order to have success, you have to be able to find some sustainable rhythm. Some people can run faster than others. Some people have bigger goals than others. Some people, can't carry that load for that long. And so for me, I'm honestly still trying to figure out what that load looks like, and it changes. Like your goals change. When Valerie had Jack, things changed. When Valerie had our second son, Ben, things change. And so I even forgot the question, but
just is it worth it? All this work and effort, is it worth it? Is the payout worth all that you're putting into it?
I love it. So when I used to work in the oil fields, fantastic job. Loved the company I worked for, loved the people I worked for. I loved everything about it except the fact that I was told when to show up to work, when I could go home, and essentially how much money I could make. And the thing that I love about real estate, because I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a workaholic, but I love working. Like I feel fulfilled, I feel satisfied, I feel like I'm contributing to my family and others when I'm working. And in real estate, my income, I'm not told when I have to work, when I can take time off, when I can do stuff like that. I am now given this unlimited runway from which I can now create an income.
That's the flexibility I was talking about.
So the flexibility on the income, but like for me, the income in real estate,
you can push yourself as hard as or as little as you want, depending on what you want the outcome to be.
Yeah, you can, but in order to have in order to make $70,000 a year, $100,000 a year, like anything that resembles a livable wage in California, you have to work harder than you would work in other industries.
Oh, really? Okay.
Absolutely. But when I think flexibility, and the flexibility I like is the flexibility of my income. Like if I'm willing to put in the hours, if I'm willing to work harder than anybody else, I can out earn everybody. Nobody's telling me when I can work overtime.
Right.
Nobody's telling me, when I can go to work, when I have to leave, and how much money I can make that month or that week. Like that's up to me. It's solely resting on my shoulders, and that flexibility of income is what I love about the industry. Because Valerie and I, we both graduated college, right? But her degree's in nutrition, my degree's in history. Like if I was to be a history teacher, I'd be making a fraction of what I'm making now, right?
Sure.
But despite having a history degree, I am able to use skills and talents and read books and pay for coaching and go to events and invest in myself and make more money than people who are doctors, lawyers, dentists, So that's the flexibility I like about the industry. But if it's about time, if it's about work-life balance, this is not the industry for you.
The weather's getting better. Buyers are out shopping. Is your home ready to sell? Well, skip all the showings, the open houses, those costly needed repairs, and just reach out to Johnny Jennings. He'll get you at least 3 cash offers on your home, guaranteed in as-is condition. There's a reason why they were voted #1 real estate team in Roseville for the past 3 years. Almost 1,000 5-star Google reviews. Just Google Johnny Jennings with Made for More Realty and get more for your home.
This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
So, Matt, I don't know if you've heard about this before, but I mean, you've heard about buyer's remorse, right? Like buying a car, buying a phone, buying whatever.
Sure, absolutely.
People experience that when they purchase homes as well.
A buyer's remorse after all
Absolutely.
the time and energy you went into buying your house. Obviously, you researched it, you compared with dozens of other homes. You spent hours looking at every little aspect of the home, doing,
Home inspections, pest inspections.
all that.
Yeah.
After all of that, now you decide, well, what's the emotion? What is the thought afterwards? And how much after the close do they have that buyer's remorse?
So the thing to keep in mind is this is a huge transaction. And
have you ever had buyer's remorse for any of the homes you've purchased? I haven't.
I probably own every single house I've purchased. At one point, I've had buyer's remorse. And
Wow.
then the other side of the coin is I've had seller's remorse. Like, I'm like, dang it, I should not have sold that property.
You're just never happy.
I'm just never happy. Well, it's just like you second guess yourself. Oftentimes, it's like, what did I just do?
Right.
Like, I remember the first time I bought a house, I closed on it, and when you buy a home, a lot of the closing costs, or some of the closing costs, include that first month or even that first 2 months worth of payments. Right. But I remember that first time I had to make the payment, I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? This is going to come again next month, and then next month, and then what? Am I really qualified for this? And so, going from, renting to all of a sudden now this is all on my shoulders, what can cause people to have buyer's remorse, especially for first-time home buyers, because they're like, what did I do?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, a couple months later, you get the supplemental tax bill, and then you're like, oh man, when the hits just do not stop coming, because you have now the monthly payment, you have the supplemental tax bill where now it's a huge, large chunk, and then now things are breaking, and now it's your responsibility to fix it. Now you don't like your neighbors, right? You may have done all your due diligence on the house, but how are the neighbors? Did they got a yappy dog that you can't shut up?
Yeah.
And so now you're dealing with that. And you're like, I have to hear that dog for the next 30 years. And so there's a lot of people that experience it, but the ones that really get me, and the ones that were the ones that bought in 2021. The people that bought in 2021 are experiencing a lot of buyer's remorse right now because, and again, I'm painting with broad brushes. If you bought in 2021, you love your house, fantastic. I'm not directing this at you, but a lot of people felt pressured to buy a home because, again, it's the American dream. It's what people aspire to, and it's what you need to do to be an adult, to have a family. To if you love your family, you're gonna buy a house, right? And so a lot of people were in that stage in 2021, and the market was just crazy. And so they were, bidding $10,000, $20,000, $100,000 over list.
Yeah.
And now they're locked into this home, and then interest rates started going up in, I think it was 2022, mid 2022. And now people are in like 5%, 6%, 7% interest rate loans. And they're like, man, I overpaid for the house. Because this is a very key thing. Just because you own a house does not mean you're going to make money when you sell the house.
Right, but in 2021, interest rates weren't that bad.
They weren't that bad.
So people were overpaying maybe.
They were
especially
overpaying.
People from the Bay Area when you had these cash bidding wars, right?
Yep.
And so even though maybe they overpaid, at least their interest rate is not astronomical unless they refinanced for some dumb reason.
But the purchase price, so what most people don't realize about real estate, and this is very key to understand, if you're trying to make money in real estate, you make your money when you buy. That's when you make your money. You don't realize it until you sell, but you make, or until if it's a rental property, it starts cash flowing, but you make your money when you buy. And so a lot of people were pressured into placing bids, whether it was the agent, whether it was themselves, whether it was just society in general. They're like, interest rates are so low, now's the time to get a great deal on a house, lock this low interest rate in, and you overpaid for a house that maybe now you don't like. Well, you bought wrong. And so now if you're looking to sell, 2, 3, 4 years later, you might not be making any money. You might be coming out of pocket on those deals. You're upside down. And so not even upside down, it's just the market's been flat. And so you can't, when you sell a house, it's typically, 8 to 10% of the purchase price is what it costs you to sell the home. So if you bought a house for $600,000 and now it's worth $650,000, you might be coming out $10,000 in order to make that sale take place. And so that's why people tend to experience some buyer's remorse. They got pressured into a situation, they bought wrong, they it wasn't right for their situation. Maybe they over leveraged themselves.
But would you say that they're only experiencing that buyer's remorse when it comes to selling? If they stay in the house, are they still experiencing that buyer's remorse because, oh my goodness, I got to pay this mortgage every month?
Well, it's also like if you don't know what you don't know until you move into the house, and so everything may have looked fine, and sometimes there's things that weren't caught on the on the inspection reports. Sometimes the pool pump goes out right when you're in transition from one job to the other, and you're like, how am I going to pay for this and that, or the AC goes out. Like there's just a lot of overhead, and most people aren't. Like you hear there's this golden story about home ownership, about how it's the best thing ever. Sure, you're gonna you see the boomers bought a house for $10,000 with an orange down payment. And now they're selling it for $800,000, $900,000. And you hear that story and you're like, hey, I want that. Sure. And then you get into it and you're like, whoa, they were in that house for 40 years. That's part. And during that 40 years, they replaced the roof twice. They installed AC. They had a lot of maintenance to the property. And so you just want to make sure when you're buying a house that you understand it's not just about the down payment and the monthly. It's about the location. It's about the neighbors. It's about everything.
So go slow and think it through. Don't rush into it. Is that what you're saying?
Don't rush into it, and just don't
give into the pressure either.
Exactly. That's the big thing. Don't give into the pressure, because oftentimes people the realtor doesn't know what's going on in between your ears. Right. And so, but if you're feeling this pressure that this is what you have to do, I would just encourage you to just tap the brakes, make sure that you're comfortable with the payment. That's the other thing too, is sometimes the payment, even though you can technically afford it. I met with a gentleman yesterday. He's like, Johnny, I'm house poor. I can make my payment. I just don't want to keep making this payment because I can't afford to do anything else with my life. And so just make sure you're not pressured in that situation to where you're house poor, to maybe where you're overpaying, to maybe where family members are saying, hey, you need to do this if you love so-and-so. Then, I would just don't give into the pressure.
Yeah. So they should obviously reach out to you where they're not going to feel any of that pressure.
Oh, yeah. We have a strict zero pressure policy company, zero pressure policy at our company. So if you want to reach out to us, go to madeformorerealty.com. You see we have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google, most highly rated company in the area. And if you want out of a situation, if you want to cancel the listing, if you don't want to work with us, if you think we're not, worth whatever it is we've agreed to, then you can cancel it. Rip up the contract anytime. We'll part as friends. We want to earn your business, not lock you into a contract.